Hey guys, today I wanted to share some tips and tricks for starting a small business on Etsy. These are some things that I wish I knew when I first started, and I am by no means a pro, but these are some things that I learned along the way that I think would be super helpful for anyone starting a small business. There's so many types of small businesses you can try out with all sorts of budgets, so it doesn't always have to be expensive to start. I do want to note that I won't be going into legal details of any paperwork in starting a small business, but if you do plan on starting, you should research based on where you live. It can be really different depending on which state or even country that you live in. I'm in the US, so each state has its own laws regarding which paperwork you need to fill out for a business license, sales permit, tax ID, etc. I will also make a separate video about resources that I used in building my small business, and a handful of them are actually free. Okay, so now that we have that out of the way, let's get into the tips and tricks. For my first tip, there is a handful of questions that I feel like would be really helpful for you to answer. This will give you an overall idea of what direction you want to start with, and it can really help you stay focused without being overwhelmed during the process. The first question for you is, what do you want to sell? You can literally sell almost anything that you want, whether it's clothes, tote bags, crochet plushies, stickers, bullet journal kits, greeting cards, art prints. Honestly, that list is endless. I personally sell a couple of categories based on original artwork that I make, and you don't have to stick to just one product type. You can pick a handful, but I do think it's important for you to figure out what kind of niche you want to go towards. Now let's talk about branding. What do you want your brand to look like? This includes your brand name, logo, colors, and font. This can be really fun to design, and you get to create something that represents you and your brand. Of course, this can change down the line, so don't worry if you're not too sure about it. I personally wouldn't let this step hold me back in starting a small business. I personally am a year in, and I've already updated my branding to feel more cohesive and represent the direction that I want to go in now. This is 100% okay in my opinion, and your vision of how you want your brand to look will come clearer as you go through your journey. When deciding your brand name, make sure that you check to make sure that it's available. When I started, I checked my state official's website, Etsy, and all social media platforms that I was interested in to make sure that it wasn't already taken. If it's not taken, then you're good to go. When I finally decided on my name, I went ahead and created all the accounts right away. Now that you've settled on your brand name, you can pick your color palette and your font for your logo. I would suggest picking a font that fits the feel of your brand. For example, if you're starting an art business, you can choose something a little bit more fun or round and even play around with the placement. If you're starting a planner kit business with a more contemporary aesthetic, you can pick something a little bit more polished, like a script. For color palettes, you can find inspiration on Pinterest or use websites like coolers.co, which can help generate palettes for you to flip through. Now that you know your branding and product that you want to sell, you'll need to figure out your pricing. You want to make sure that you have a clear idea of how much it costs to make an item, as well as how much it typically sells for. I recommend creating a spreadsheet or keeping a journal to track. You'll need to figure out the cost of all your supplies for each individual item and make sure you'll be able to sell it for a profit. When it comes to inventory, there's a couple of ways that you can manage this. You can choose to make your orders as they come in, you can drop collections with inventory in stock, or you can even do customizations. For me personally, I like to hold the least amount of inventory to avoid overmaking products. I tend to make a handful to shoot product photos with, and then will make them each time to fill orders as they come in. I do this with my stickers and greeting cards, but for my sticky notes, I usually have about 10 to 20 printed since I do outsource them. Some small businesses will pre-make their products to have a set amount that they want to sell and launch it all at once, like a drop. Eventually, I'll start running my business this way as I continue to grow and have more consistent orders. For now, making products as I get orders works best for me. You can definitely do it whichever way that you feel most comfortable. The last way is to offer customs, and you can definitely combine this with the other two options as well. Customization is highly searched for on Etsy, so you might find a lot of success depending on what your product niche is. I personally have only done a handful for people who specifically asked me for it, and I've mainly done it with my clay Polaroid holders and clay trinket dishes. How many products do I need to start with? I would just launch with a handful, probably around 5 to 10 items, and you can always add as you go along. Etsy is a huge platform with a ton of listings, so it can be a numbers game at times. The more products you have, the more of a chance you'll get for showing up on searches. However, this is very dependent on your niche and also very dependent on your SEO. Now let's get into optimizing your product listings. This does include your product photos, videos, description, and SEO. Product photos are super important because it's what people see when they're searching through Etsy. You want to make sure that you shoot your photos with really good lighting and have different angles. Lifestyle shots and style flyaways are super helpful in catching your eye when you're scrolling through a ton of listings. There's also an option for you to add videos as well. I personally have not done this too much, although I really should. For product descriptions, you definitely want to make sure you include as much detail as possible. I typically like to include details like what the item's made out of, the uses, who it's for, dimensions, etc. If you need ideas of what to include in your product descriptions, I find it super helpful at looking at different retailers for inspiration. So for example, for greeting cards, I would look at Target or Paper Source as a good resource as to what I should include. Okay, the next thing is SEO. SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization, and I'm sure you've heard so many people talk about this time and time again. It really is important, and this basically refers to the keywords that people search when they're looking for product. So this means you'll want to make sure that you have the keywords in your product title, description, and tags in your product listings. The more accurate your keywords are, the better of a chance that you have of your product reaching the right audience. Next is packaging. When you're starting out, especially if you're unsure of how set and final you are with your logo, you can definitely opt into making your own branding cards and stickers by hand. I don't think it's 100% necessary to outsource since it can be a really big commitment. I still to this day print out my own thank you cards, packaging stickers, and backing cards. This allows me to make changes and updates along the way, which I definitely have. When it comes to designing your branding cards, what you can do is design them on either Procreate or Canva. Print them out on heavy-duty cardstock, and then cut them out to size. So this really allows you to customize exactly what you want them to look like. You can always tweak them, and it's really low commitment, so you can really have a lot of fun here. For shipping supplies, I personally use self-sealed rigid mailers as well as crap envelopes, and depending on your products, you may need boxes or poly mailers. You can buy these on Amazon, and eventually if you need to buy in bulk, you can definitely check out companies like Uline who do offer a bigger discount depending on how much quantity you need. There's also companies that make custom packaging like No Issue, but those are also a bigger investment. So it really boils down to what you want to offer. So if you want to offer free shipping and prioritize that, you'll definitely have to figure out where to cut costs. So you can always opt in for cheaper, more generic packaging and brand it with a branding sticker. Or if you want to create an overall experience for your customer when they're opening up a package, you can opt in for customized packaging, but you'll just have to realize that you'll either have to charge for shipping or take a deeper cut in your profit margins. So that actually gives me a great transition into my next topic, which is shipping costs. You'll need to decide if you want to be able to offer free shipping or if you want to charge your customers for it. Etsy does have a partnership with a company called Pitney Bowes, which does give discounted rates, and you would just drop it off at USPS. It does provide a tracking number, but I do want to clarify that it can only be tracked through Pitney Bowes and not through USPS. Aside from USPS, you also have the option to ship with carriers like FedEx through Etsy, so you just have to select whichever option makes you the most comfortable. The really nice thing about Etsy is that you can choose the option for calculated shipping, and this basically allows Etsy to help determine the shipping cost based on the weight and dimensions of your products once packaged. The way that you can opt into this is on your product listing page. So when you're creating your product, there is a section where you can fill in the dimensions and the weight of your product once packaged. So this allows Etsy to calculate it once it's ready to go. So those are all my tips and tricks. I really hope you guys found this video helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Bye for now.